joining us. We got me and Zeb and our guest Ronald Wan, Managing Director of China Merchant Securities. And Ronald joins us on this holiday here in Hong Kong, dressed appropriately for June Sweeping holiday.
Very formal.
Yeah, you got to bring the ties and the ancestors. Okay, so let's talk about the opening up of the capital markets. That's kind of a big deal in China, right? And Mia's been covering this Q fee quota being lifted to $80 billion.
Yeah, up $50 billion. Of course, the scheme was first implemented back 9 years ago, and the idea being that China is looking to switch their markets from a export-driven market to a consumer-driven market. What are your thoughts in terms of this scheme versus also the fact that they're trying to open the markets for those offshore investors?
I think it should be a positive news for the Asia market, given the poor performance recently, and also the amount increase in size, and also the other new schemes, including the RQ fee, has been kind of in accordance with the timetable, has been much faster than we have expected. So it should be good.
Now, do you think investors will take to this? Of course, this is really just a drop in the bucket, considering that China does have a $1 trillion economy.
$10 billion for Q fee, right? Just a mere $10 billion, $5 billion back then.
And there are still restrictions.
I remember when there was nothing.
Right. Oh, really? That was before. That was 10 years ago.
Clever. She made it up.
There are still restrictions, right, in terms of transparency, in terms of the amount that you can repatriate, in terms of the amount that you can actually invest. So it's a step in the right direction, but we're not ultimately there. Do you think that?
I think it still needs some time to liberalize China's capital market. I think it may take another 5 years. But anyway, given the recent policy, I think all the investors in China should be encouraged, and the Asia sentiment should be supported psychologically.
I guess this is consistent with that general theme of opening up. You talk about it being encouraging to investors. Do you think they'll continue to lessen the barriers to entry to the capital markets there?
I think so, because we talk about a Q fee. I know actually the size has been the quota size has been increased significantly. Also, there has been a new innovative in the RQ fee segment. They also released the restriction on the investment criteria. So more funds will be channeled to the equity market and also to the innovative ETF market.
Rhonda, yeah, it's all part, I guess, of one could say the move towards perhaps also liberalisation of the currency here as well, which is in recent days and weeks been allowed to move up and down. So what about this in turn, and also Credit Agricole coming out with this note?
Cutting rates pretty soon?
Yeah, they reckon that we could get it. Yep. That's what they reckon. They think it could happen as soon as today. I like that, though, as soon as today. That doesn't mean it could happen.
As soon as today, as late as July.
Yeah. Didn't mention the last bit, but we get their drift. Ronald, what do you make of this?
I think the reserve ratio can be cut in April, but I don't think that will be a cut in the interest rate, because we see there's a rebound in the inflation trend. So I think the Chinese central government will be very cautious.
But would they do it when the market's closed? I don't know. From your experience,
they would. That's probably the perfect timing for them.
Yeah, possible.
They did it on
Christmas Day, right?
Was it Christmas Day? Was it Chinese New Year? They did something as well?
They did something there as well.
They do release the PMI on Sundays, so I guess.
Yes. Public holiday or a Friday afternoon at 6 p.m. after everyone's packed up and gone home for the weekend. That's when they love to do it.
Yes, possible.
Yeah, so let's talk about I want to talk about the big Premier Wen statement, because he said...
Is he a big Premier Wen?
Yeah, you know.
He's quite small, isn't he?
Well,
at least for this year.
Well, that's your comment. But Premier Wen was talking about reducing the size, since you want to talk about size, of the big banks in China. And he's talking about removing the monopoly that these big banks have. I mean, is that about changing the landscape? I mean, shouldn't we be rethinking these banking stocks if that's the case?
Well, I think it's very difficult, because the Chinese bank, include especially the big four, has become so big, and the market has been monopolized by them. So it is very difficult to change the rules and change the market structure. I think it will take years, for them to change.
But they have that pilot program right now in Wenzhou, where he has been able to set up these more formal lenders so that these small companies and these private companies can get some of this privatized lending. Do you anticipate a rollout of this pilot program in Wenzhou to further cities and provinces?
Well, I think I need time for the central government to observe the performance in Wenzhou. I think it may take another 2 or 3 years before they can liberalize the market to other bigger cities.
Sorry, what's happening in Wenzhou? It's Wenzhou, right?
They have a pilot program in place to provide lending to private and small companies who aren't able to secure it. From what I understand,
we've been talking about.
Because, of course, the shadow banking, we talked about this the other day, and the shadow banking system had taken over, and really, really skewed thing. And the SMEs couldn't get the cash, could
And
they?
80 people, I guess, have committed suicide in the past month because they weren't able to fulfill their debt obligations. And so it's a huge social issue, also
There was a talk about
financial
shadow
issue.
banking taking place in Wenzhou, and people who weren't borrowing from the banks, though, and going to the black market.
The informal lenders,
you know.
yeah.
Well, I guess this, as we talk about liberalization, it really brings this shadow banking out of the dark, right? I mean, in an effort to get the system more in line with international standards and also to get rid of some of this risk and this lack of transparency in the market. At the end of the day, that has to be a good thing. But, of course, rolling it out across China and getting rid of this shadow banking system is a massive, massive challenge.
Well, some say the next couple of quarters, so it's interesting that you say next 2 to 3 years.
Yes. Yeah, because you know, the Wenzhou's example is a very unique example because Wenzhou's the private enterprise has been very active in the past 5 years. So if it proves to be a success in Wenzhou, it can roll out to other cities, you know, later on.
Okay, well, there you go. So what are the best bets right now in the China space? I'm curious. Since we talked about banking, you know, do you think it's time to sell off these banking shares if that's the case?
He didn't like them last time we talked to him, did he? So I don't know if he's changed his view. Yeah, it says the bank stocks, yeah, you should avoid property. You know, you like bank stocks. You still like bank stocks.
I still like bank stocks,
Ronald's
you know.
here, Rich.
know.
I think he can answer the question,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm just asking whether I'm getting it right for myself, and you know, you should avoid property and retailers.
Yeah, but I have some changes this time because I know, according to the board meetings, the senior government official has rolled out a new plan to stimulate the private consumption and retail segments. So there may be some support in the retail sectors, you know, in the next couple of weeks.
All right, there you go. Well, thank you for dropping by on this holiday.